Negotiations continue between White House officials and congressional leaders, and unfortunately, after this past weekend and various talks, the administration still refuses to sign on to any type of deal that Democrats are putting forth. So as a result, Trump has tried to change his rhetoric a little bit to try to appeal to Democrats, but it's not working. So what is he saying? Take a look.
I informed my folks to say that we'll build a steel barrier. Steel. It'll be made out of steel. It'll be less obtrusive and it'll be stronger. But it'll be less obtrusive, stronger, and we're able to use our great companies to make it by using steel. So we're going to be doing a steel barrier, and that gives us great strength at the border. And as I told you, it's going to be a steel border, and that's going to give us great strength. They don't like concrete, so we'll give them steel. Steel is fine. Steel is actually more expensive than concrete.
So I didn't quite catch that. What's the wall going to be made out of again?
We'll build a steel barrier. Steel is actually a steel border. It'll be made out of steel. So we'll give them steel by using steel. Steel is fine. Steel barrier, steel. Steel is actually more expensive.
Do you ever catch yourself in the middle of a conversation with someone who's maybe a little older, right? And they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, and you don't know what to do because you want to get out of the conversation, but you can't. You don't want to be rude.
Yeah, I believe the whole country has caught ourselves in that situation right now.
Just stop talking. Just stop. Like, you've already made your point. It's going to be steel slats. Move on. We got it. You don't have to repeat it 58 times.
No, I think what happened there is somebody told him, hey, we're going to be stealing something. He's like, I'm in. Okay, he's like, we're stealing? I love stealing. That's what I've done my whole career. Okay, steal. Let's steal. Let's steal. Steal. Let's steal.
So this is it's crazy because he thinks that this is a concession that will appeal to Democrats because it's no longer a concrete wall. He's agreed to change his rhetoric and say, no, it's going to be steel slats instead of a wall. He thinks that somehow $5 billion for that nonsense would make the offer more appealing for congressional Democrats? What?
Okay, so maybe there's a strategy here. This is certainly not thought of by Trump. That would be impossible. And I'm trying to guess at it. It's, by the way, entirely possible there's no strategy at all. That they're trying to get unions to support a compromise. So first of all, a lot of the government workers are in unions. Of course, unions largely support the Democratic Party. But now maybe by going to the steel workers, they're like, okay, we'll get the steel workers union to go, wow, we're building it from steel. Now we're having a conversation, put more pressure on the Democrats. That might be what's going on. It's inconceivable that Trump would have thought of that.
Would that be enough pressure?
Probably not.
Right.
And maybe he thinks he's being clever by trying to appeal to. Again, he ran his campaign on protecting coal. It's a minuscule industry in the country, but it harkens back to the good old days of America when coal was dominant. And you might be seeing something similar here with steel, when the steel industry was dominant.
I totally get it as a political strategy in a campaign, right? When you're trying to appeal to people who want to harken back to the days of, back then when America was different. But it's not gonna work in the context of these negotiations. Now, Trump is doing anything and everything he can to get the funding that he wants for the border wall. Remember, this is just a symbol. This is just him trying to prove to his base that he's willing to fight for one of the things that he campaigned on. Now, you might give him credit for that, but it's causing a lot of pain and suffering in the meantime. Trump also reiterated his suggestion, first made last week, that he was considering declaring a national emergency if Congress didn't agree to fund the wall, an action that would invite legal challenges, a state of national emergency. Okay.
Now, you guys all know that Congress has to appropriate money. So we have three branches of government. I'm telling just in case Trump is watching, and Congress is the one that says, okay, we're going to spend this money, and then the president has to either sign it or veto the legislation, and that's how we get it. The president can't just say, oh, I'm going to spend the money. Now, if he declares a national emergency, he theoretically could, but it has to be under very strict guidelines. Otherwise, the president would just become king and go, I don't need Congress to give me the money. I'll just spend the money.
Well, that's the way he sees the office of the president, right? As someone who can unilaterally flex his muscle and do whatever he wants. But we're not supposed to live in that type of country. We're supposed to believe in our Constitution, in a democratic process. He doesn't care about any of that. Now, finally, just to prove to you that the whole wall debate for Trump is nothing more than political symbolism, right? And trying to gain political brownie points from his base. They don't even know what they would exactly spend that $5 billion on, okay? So as I mentioned, they had these negotiations over the weekend. It was a fruitless effort. But part of the reason why it was a fruitless effort is because congressional Democrats and their aides were like, okay, fine, can you guys just please give us a breakdown of how you would spend this $5 billion? Two Democratic aides said the meeting was delayed by 45 minutes because Republicans weren't ready with documents to explain what that $5.7 billion amount was needed for the wall.
Yeah, so.
Or why it was needed for the wall, sorry.
They don't know. They never even bothered to figure, they just picked 5.7 billion out of the nowhere. So they're like, okay, well, what are you gonna spend it on? Like, oh, we'll be right back. That's so embarrassing.
I can't believe, but I feel like a lot of negotiations must work that way, right? Because how often do politicians decide, and by the way, both Democrats and Republicans, how often do they decide, no, I wanna appropriate this amount of money for whatever, and then no one ever asks them how that money's gonna be spent, right?
Especially if they're Republicans, then it never gets asked. Right, Bernie Sanders has page after page on his website of exactly how he would pay for every program.
How are you gonna pay for that though?
No other candidate has it. They're like, oh no, don't worry. That question is only for progressives. So of course you ask a Republican, forget how you're gonna pay for it. What do you want it for? Like, oh, well, I didn't think about that. So of course it's not a national emergency. They don't even know why they want the money, what they want it for in specific. And of course, one last thing, Trump said, I never said it had to be concrete. He only said it dozens of times in the campaign. It has to be concrete. And now he's like, steel's even better. You know what he then said? Steel, it's a beautiful product. What are we gonna do with this child?
One day, this is the dream. Hopefully it works out this way. One day when he's no longer in office and we just have a competent leader. I just want a competent leader at this point. We're gonna go back and we're gonna laugh, right?
Oh yeah,
we're gonna have fun, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna be like, well, at least he was entertaining.
It reminds me of a story that I'll tell in a post game one day. tyt.com/join to become a member and hear that story of how I broke in somewhere to get my math book somewhere at my school, and my sister was with me, and the cops stopped us, and my sister. It's a long story and it's a fun story, but I remember her last thing was, "We will never laugh about this." Okay, and I think it is fair to say about Trump, we will never laugh about this. But look, I mean, as awful and hideous as Bush and Cheney were, we're laughing about it now. It called up my budget, man.
Where's Mandela? Mandela's dead.
He was not dead at the time.
Yeah.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.